It's 5 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Having a new board, I will entertain motions for a chair, please.
Rather not be a chair, but I can if I.
Robbie's not here,
need to be.
We could do that to him.
And then.
I'll nominate Rob.
Okay.
I'll second it.
He should not show up.
Any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, all those in favor of Robbie? Yeah, now we'll take nomination for vice chair, who will be the person who runs today's meeting.
Since I'm new, I'm not gonna do it.
Might be rough if I do it.
Mike just nominated you by a show of a hand. Is there a second for that?
Sure.
All right.
Any other nominations for vice chair? All those in favor of Cody as vice chair?
Look at that.
You abstaining? You never vote for yourself.
We'll go. I'll do it.
All right, very good. The meeting is yours.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, so next order of business is the review and approval of minutes from 26 August 24. You want me to just run through what we discussed, or?
If you'd like, you may.
I read through it.
Everybody got hard copies, hopefully.
I read through it. Remember what happened then? Anyone have anything they want to add, or we can make a motion to approve them and move on?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Next order of business, discussion, action on the sewer payment policy. I'll call vote.
Please.
Yep. All in favor to approve the minutes of last meeting?
Which one else that? The list.
Do you not have an agenda?
I'm telling you right now. No. It's okay.
I can write it.
No, that's all right. No, I'm sorry, it was stuck to the back of that.
Okay.
Hey. Like, what the hell is it?
Okay. Everyone's good to move forward. We'll go on to the next section, discussion and action on sewer payment policy.
So this is customarily approved every year. It's countersigned by the select board already. Last year, you may remember, the board did not approve and sign this out of the gate. It wasn't until about 4 months after that we did. What it says is that we will pay payments on oldest usage permit. You can't just pay the current, you have to pay the oldest first. You have to pay your interest and whatnot first. We're not charging interest on interest. And then when it comes to 30-day notices, 45-day notices to lien, in the 10 days prior to those notices and filings, we require certified payment, being a bank check, a certified check, money order, or cash. Because if we release on a check and that personal check is not sufficient, then we may or may not have discharged a lien that we should not have discharged, or have released a property that we should have foreclosed on.
Basically, you want to guarantee you.
Payment in that final 10 business days of them.
Okay.
So it would be a motion to sign, if that's the pleasure.
I'll make a motion to sign.
I'll second it.
Doesn't matter where.
Just on one of those lines. Yeah, please, thank you.
Richard, I have signed on my person. I have the official one. I keep that David, right?
You can sign however you want to sign.
Well, no, I mean, probably on the official one, I guess.
Any other items for sewer payment policy? Should be everything. Move on to the next. Okay, next, discussion action on financial sewer use rates. Anyone want to start on that one?
Yeah, if I can, before I start, I think everybody knows Tim Lyman, who's your operator. Who you probably don't know or may know is Ed Avery, he is now the backup for Tim. He is, as of this week, a full-time employee with the town, he'll be 20 hours at wastewater, he'll be 20 hours here as code office. So that should be a mutually beneficial thing moving forward, so I'll be looking forward to that. Back to financials, what you have the 2024 operating expenses and revenues for the sewer department. That's in this report here. What we're supposed to be doing is balancing the expense side with the use charges on the other side. So your revenues of 278,399 is that use charge figure. And then your sewer expenses, which is a greater number of that, 296,338. So what I've done for you is I rolled it into a spreadsheet to show you historic ups and downs, your changes in expenses, changes in revenue, to try to put a trend to it as best as one could. Because the fund needs to operate, the sewer department operates as its own fund, it is supposed to be self-sustained. And so, in 2024, it operated at a net loss of about 18,000. Prior to that, back to 2020, there were gains to be made, but then before that, there were significant losses. And so I did not net that out because it's discouraging. But what I did was I took 4-year historical averages here to say, what are the changes in expenses? And over the last 4 years, expenses have risen 7.45%. And the changes in revenues, those are only averaging 2%. So what we're taking in for revenues is far outpaced by the rate at which expenses are increasing. I don't think that that's necessarily a surprise. But the reason that your revenues have kind of slumped, if you will, is because we haven't increased rates since 21, I believe, was the last increase that went into effect. And that was phased. So we caught up, and then because we haven't made those adjustments, we then start to slow down and get caught behind.
But didn't we last year do a stub fee increase?
The stub fee increase was incorporated with the last set of increases. And that might have been 2 years ago, and it took effect in. Had to be prep. 2/1 of 23, so we're 2 years out now, since the last increase went into effect. So that's on your comp sheet. What I did was, I called around the ones that were difficult, but Tim found the points that are comparable number of users and similar style systems for processing. So then we zeroed in on those folks who, regardless of how much money they have or anything else, what are they charging out and how does that work? So there's some different factors in play with each of those, but that gives you the perspective. And then so the effective 2/1/23 are out of current rates right now. Not to take everybody out of focus, but I think the long and short of it is that it is your charge in ordinance to assess rates. And we have not done that in more than 2 years now. And we really need to remain as close to break even as we can. One thing to be mindful of is we also don't put money into a reserve.
Yeah.
And so that could be considered arguably another shortfall in what is produced here, so. That's really kind of the direction of the discussion that I'm prompting you to have and whether or not you wanna move. with
So,
something like that.
right now, we're at 9 cents a cubic foot.
That's correct.
How much of an increase are you looking, cause you've got all these figures,
Yeah.
that would it take to get us? Folks.
Yeah, so
You know,
if you just increase your rates. You're adjusting your revenues, you're not, and that settles in your mind, like, okay, well, I'll cover that gap, but you can't. Ignore the fact that expenses are still outpacing, expenses are going up by that 7.45% a year. So putting in a 10-10-10 doesn't give you the balance that initially you would think that you got. If you put in a 10% increase June 1st, rolled another 10%, that's what's on the top of this paper.
Yeah.
June 1st, a 10% increase. Then in January of next year, you roll another 10% increase, sorry.
yeah,
Then January of the next year and January of the next year. 10% each. At the end of the day, your average bill is going from $163 to about $240. In a quarter,
so $80 a quarter.
more. Over the course of the next 2.5 years. Right, and take effect in that 2.5 years.
So $80 a quarter for 2.5 years, it's gonna increase per quarter.
Well, right, so you're 163 right now, if June 1st you increased it by 10%, that bill would. Look at $180, the 179.30, this is all on average.
Okay, yeah, I got it, yeah.
Okay, and then it steps up, that's what your average bill
Yeah.
changes to look like over the course of those increases.
So in the next 5 years, it would go up by $80.
Per quarter, right, so you're looking at $320 on the year.
Yeah, okay,
So then you can look at the chart at the bottom of that page is taking into consideration. The increase in expenses continuing at the same rate over the next 3 years, and then revenues. Continuing as you rate set. And what that's going to do is that will lead you to a loss at the end of this period. With that first increase, it's not until 2027 until you break even. We're operating in red for that period of time. Under current circumstances, and it's not until that final increase in January of 2028. That you would see the department really operate at above break even, where they clear 21,000. All the while, if you date it back to June of 2025, the net result of this increase is about $8,500 down. It's gonna take you a while to dig out of that hole.
I got a question. With New Balance going out, they were probably one of the bigger contributors to our whole thing.
That's correct.
How much is the sewer department going to lose out of that with them leaving?
So it fluctuates, but you know, they're usually a $2,000 a quarter bill. And I
with
could
these
not-
these figures were not figured in with the loss of.
If you do that, we can do that, I can forecast that out for you.
Okay, I'm just asking, this is
But you're
without,
gonna see it'll be a darker situation. We've already seen a slump. Obviously, their operations are moving back over there. We've already seen their bills start to decrease. Them in the school, that's, you know, the car wash is obviously a beneficial user. But. You're looking at ballpark $2,000 a year, $2,000 a quarter, maybe a little bit more. With the shoe shop use.
Would the increase in rate compensate for that?
I mean, it'll make it better, but it's not gonna be at
Right,
the
it's a
amount
loss
that
is a
obviously
loss.
we're gonna wanna see. Seems like we're gonna have to increase,
What's our average cubic feet that goes to the sewer per year?
it's the average what?
Cubic feet that goes to the sewer every year.
Good question. 63,000 per day. Let's get this calculated going.
23 million.
Yeah,
On a 1%,
Right,
That's gallons. You convert that to,
divided by 7.65.
Cody,
Yeah, I think it's,
7.48, I think,
so it's 23 million divided by 7.
7.48 or something like that.
So that's 275,000. Right. That's the revenue generated right there, off from the number you just gave me.
Would 1% increase or 10% increase compensate? At that, but that's gonna decrease quite a bit with New Balance going out.
Right, I mean, so like I said, we've already seen a little bit of slump in. New Balance's usage, because they're doing a lot less there. But I also didn't want that to be the doom and gloom. Of the situation, the fact is the department's operating in a deficit right now anyway.
And it's gonna be even harder to make up that deficit with New Balance going out.
Right.
I just worry about how steep it is, just. I believe the water district's gonna raise their rates as well. So you're gonna put. It's gonna be, and
If you live in town, you get rate.
well, I'm just saying, I think it's gonna be a tough situation. to
Didn't the
sell-
water rates,
sell-
didn't the water rates just go up or something?
Yes, water rates went up 10% and they'll go up another 10% next year.
I pay for the water twice.
So this is the New Balance and small account. They have two separate accounts. But right now they're at $397 was their last bill that they sent last month, 500, 1100, but then it goes down. It's a little difficult to predict, it looks a lot like seasonality. But the one that appears to be more consistent is this guy here, where you've been at 1,400 or 1,000. And so you're losing that 1,300, say, for the sake of numbers.
And that's a quarter.
That's a quarter, yeah. So it's a little, I mean, say $1,500 a quarter, for what you'll pull out. You just take everything averaged.
So $6,000 a year, but we're gonna have to.
6 to 8, yeah.
So that's 3%, 2.5% of your revenue.
You know whether or not there's going to be anything replacing New Balance?
That's the hope that there would be, but
I'm sure, I haven't heard anything as of recent, so. I mean, so each increase that we're looking at, I mean, if you look at it year to year. Between the current versus the June. June change is $16 change, I mean, yes, incrementally, it's. Not much. In that sense, But then also playing into the fact that, water went up as well. The ability of individuals actually not becoming delinquent on these. Do we have an idea of what kind of do we have an average of delinquencies that we?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that now, how bad is it now?
it's the same folks. On a quarterly basis, when we file 30-day notices, we're probably sending 30-day notices to 30 to 35 customers. And then by the time we file liens, it's usually less than 15.
So we're like. I mean, we're at like 5% roughly of our residents right now, give or take, are in that boat. My thought is likely it probably would not change that much with that, but, I understand, I mean, we gotta raise them up based off of, I mean, what we need. We're still gonna be at a loss for the next 2 years. And won't even see some sort of net gain until 27. So.
So I gave you this just kind of as an example, obviously not my job and I don't want the job of setting it. But what we can do is in that top box there where it says 10, 10, 10, 10. You have the ability to modify those numbers. I can adjust them up here. I just hold the spreadsheet if I'm doing it out the whole way. So you can see how it would get to your bottom line or affect your rates. If you said you wanted to go to 15% and I'm sure you know back that 15 is all right here and you can see what it generates for you. Now that didn't update, but that's what your rates look like up here. And then we'll sell references of junk, but 15%, you look how it compounds out, but you can pull it back and you could get to break even a little bit quicker.
When is New Balance's official end date?
Pardon?
When's New Balance's official end date, like when are they?
We don't have one. It's expected that they'll have operations over there until probably May. But they're partial right now. Then they'll just have base usage. We've got 2 stumps, so that's $110. They're down to 110 plus minimal usage. Probably $150 a quarter to be locked there.
Down to 10% of what they've been.
I think if we need to make a decision on setting them today. My recommendation would, especially for just where the June timeframe is so close. To leave it at a 10% and reevaluate when we see new numbers come up on how we might need to adjust for the next 3 proposed dates in January. And whether we need to adjust further. I think going more than a 10% in 3 months from now might not be the best, especially where the water just went up recently. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I agree, I mean, I'll take steps to try to get it back up to where it needs to be. And I'm not a user, so I don't mean to shove it, I don't mean to talk like that down, but I mean, I'm just looking at
I
pure
fully
numbers,
understand.
pure numbers. I
Yeah.
mean, because too many places, when I sit into the selectmen's meetings, too many places I see don't meet. You know, we keep having, the town keeps has to keep making up the money. And at some point in time, if we have the ability to have it pay for itself, I don't care what we make it just needs to pay for itself. Cause it's a recipe for disaster if it doesn't.
There.
And I would like to keep it as affordable for the users as possible, cause we already, even at that rate right there. We're not putting any money ahead for any maintenance and breakdowns and that cost, because that's gonna come back, we'll end up asking the town for. You know, the town's gonna have to go good for that, so I mean, at that 10%, that's just minimal, just operating costs without any problems.
One of the things that I talked with Robbie and them before was doing something to cut the operating expenses of the sewer treatment plant. One of the big expenses is what, $37,000 just in electricity.
But how do you propose if, how do you propose to do that? That's, I guess what I'm gonna say is, how do you cut out the electrical rate I don't think. Go and find somebody to shut a few lights off in the office is gonna do that.
Some of these towns have done things like put solar panels on top of their buildings.
And I agree with that, but where's that money gonna come from? General fund, we already can't sustain what we got here, so is that gonna be just for the sewer usage, and we're gonna look to the town to do that? I don't disagree with that, I say every town building ought to have solar on it, but we gotta, but that would be a money issue again.
Is there grants for those kind of things?
It probably are, then it's a matter of locating it.
And I'm not against that.
Um,
But I just, my opinion of grants is it may not be the local money, it's tax money, no matter how we look at it, so I'm kind of. I don't like grants that well, but I'll take them when they.
but it's tax money, but it's spread out a lot more than
Yes.
300 and some odd users.
Yes. But that would be my only thing with that is find the money, because you're already, if you're complaining about 10%. As a ratepayer, if you're gonna be upset about the 10% usage. And you say something like that to cut costs, it's gonna be an initial. A substantial amount of money up front, which we don't have, unless you, and we can't even fix the valve. Unless you come, right, I mean, that money, a valve replacement's gonna come out of the general budget.
It's gonna come out of somewhere. It might-
Right, but it's not, certainly that can't come out of the sewer budget as it stands.
Don't have the money, no.
There you go, so. I would be all for,
If there's grant money or something like that out there to possibly come up with an alternative. Okay, because like with me, water just went up. I use a lot of water. I get to pay for it twice because it goes to this, every drop of it goes to the sewer. I mean, that's a lot of, that's 45-gallon buckets out there every day. That doesn't go through the sewer, but I pay for it through the sewer.
cause yours is going right off your sewer is based on your water rate, water usage.
Yeah. I personally think that, we should also try to explore another way to offset I mean, it wasn't that long ago, I think the light bill on the place was 20 some odd $1,000.
But my
A couple of
particular,
years ago, now it's 37, what's it gonna be next year?
but that's not necessarily fair, because I know my damn bill's going up.
Yeah,
Everybody's bill's going up, and that's been across the board, so I don't think that's not a fair assessment of how we trim it, you know, I think percentage wise of usage. I don't plug in my truck in January, it cost a hell of a lot more than it did, so I mean, it doesn't, I don't, you know what, I don't have a right answer for that either. I just know it's. Insurance is just took a major jump, so I mean.
That's another, we just took it, they supplemented us halfway through the year last year because they needed to align our assets with replacement values.
It's crazy,
So that was
even if you don't make,
$3,000.
even if you haven't had any claims against you. It's astronomical what they have jumped, because again, they're gonna make us pay for all the fire and water damage across the country, so.
Yeah.
That's another thing we're gonna end up addressing. And that's not taking into account your 10% hasn't taken in all that into account, so.
Yeah.
If you're gonna say that about the solar panels, then they ought to be doing it at the fire station, we ought to have them here.
I agree 100%.
Take them out of the damn fields, cause they're useless. Put them on top of a roof. But we don't have that kind of money.
I was,
And unless there's something out there that grant money or something like that, federal funds. Which I don't have a problem looking for it. If it's out there. I mean, they've offered to put them on houses and everything else, so I mean. But
so I think with all that, just my thought would be, and so I'll just, so we can kind of move forward on this. My thought would be to make a motion to accept the 10% increase for June to help continue our path to the direction that we want to go, to get into an equal range, and then we will revisit the other proposed increases while looking into some potential other viable options that might come in to offset maybe that percentage change.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I'd second that.
So, vote. It's not always an easy thing to have to deal with.
Not when people don't have it.
Well, it's getting spread within the whole time.
Alright, so. That was sewer payment. Alright, next item, discussion action on financial sewer. Nope, we just did that one. Just kidding. We're gonna do the discussion regarding DEP compliance review.
That's in your packet, some of it's extraordinarily mundane. Tim, did you get a copy in your packet? Did you get a copy? I don't know if you wanted to just talk to it briefly.
I don't have a copy. I got it. I can grab it.
Okay.
I'll steal it. Move on. What day was it? Doesn't matter.
February 28th.
28th. It was a Friday, that's right. Did our inspection at the plant and the pump stations. Which everything looked good to them. The only suggestions, required actions, they recommended that we do an industrial waste survey in the town's collection system. Which I'll show you. Let's see, you get the list of those, I sent it over to you.
No, I did not.
And I looked through it, and I couldn't find any industrial users that we have.
It's all commercial.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, we'll look at the list Wednesday when it comes over and we'll see if we can think of anything.
The only one that we really had a question on was the
The
medical office.
Yeah, the
doctor's
medical
office,
office.
Because hospitals is on the list, but
Over here,
Is that a hospital?
what about PFAS testing down here?
that's a good point.
Yeah, I'll look at that one. That's, right. They don't do anything, it's just a lab. I think the marijuana facilities weren't on the list either. Which surprised me. That was the
They
only
just-
thing
they
they
just
required
listed
us to do.
They're just commercial?
And they recommended that we do a cybersecurity audit, see if we're safe. My computer isn't working now after we talked about it today. And then and the rate increases, which you just discussed.
Yeah.
O&M manuals, Travis and I are working on. Those are the only things they questioned. Otherwise, they were happy.
I mean, I know personally the cybersecurity audit is something that's kind of coming up around not just here, but across the nation. Kind of inside knowledge on that. The main guard, National Guard is looking to partner with the DEP in order to do these cybersecurity audits with one of our task force teams. So because there have been places that have had these individuals come in and get into this computer networks of these different industries and like just shut down the water systems or shut down some of these other like dam facilities and things like that have caused and wreaked havoc. So it's something that's slowly starting to develop. So just personal inside knowledge on that one that I know is something that's becoming more and more prevalent to look into for some of these phishing cyber hacks that have gone on that affect everyday people as opposed to just, you know, can we access the internet type deal? Just blacking out the systems, so.
Amazing, just go to work and do something.
Yeah, that one might be a potential easy thing to do, that I could look into to see just what there's a process we'd have to go through in order to try and do that, but if you haven't heard or seen any more on those, that's newly being developed, so, the industrial waste survey, obviously one of the required things, not sure where to start on that, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
We've got till 27 till our new license.
we had initially thought it was gonna include a lot of different users. And then the list was just. Didn't really include anything that we had here.
You said 27, that's what we have to.
But yeah, new license, yeah, a license lasts till 27, so. Before we apply for a new license, we'll get it done,
You're gonna be
We had 2
retired,
years.
you're gonna be retired by then.
almost this weekend.
Okay, so,
Is there anybody that actually works for the town for the cybersecurity?
We have a third party contract. We're assured as well for that, but. It's too late. Right? We've talked about it, and we talked today about computers, so he's got a computer at the office, he's got a computer that did mobile with, it's 5 years old, doesn't sound that old. But,
That's ancient in computer terms.
right, when you're operating a facility like that, so, you know, that'll be another couple $1,000 by the time everything gets upgraded and migrated over, that. You don't really have an option. So,
is there anything specific you need to move on from this one, or?
no, if we don't get these very often, and so because of the timing of everything. Figured that it was relevant to put it before you guys, keep you updated as to where we are.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into some of the recommendation, obviously, like we said, the second recommendation we just went over. First one, I'll take a look at, see what the viable options are. For what we can do with that and at what cost. I know if the National Guard does the work, usually it's no cost, so provided how the contract works out, but we can look into that. Any other thoughts or questions on the review? So oh,
As long as Timmy's got it under control and they're happy with what he's doing,
move to do you want us to accept these or move on from that?
No, that's good. It's the discussion about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Next order of business, we will go to public comment. Okay, hearing none. Other business? None, unless you got anything, Mike?
The only thing I'll ask before we adjourn is, when we talk about this rate increase that would take effect in June, that will take effect in June.
Yeah.
When do you want to get back together? Are you talking, you wanna see a quarter, or September, or? Get together in June? What are you thinking? You don't wanna wait too late, 'cause you don't wanna push it till the
I
regular
definitely,
budget time, or
I
too close
wouldn't-
to the next.
yeah, I don't think, my thought would be we wouldn't want it to be any later than like end of August, like very early September. My thought, does anyone have any ideas on whether you think we should go sooner?
August 15th.
I'm a big fan of quarterly during the year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 3 months, there's a lot happening in 3 months. Okay,
So we could set the next one within the next quarter. I like the way you pulled for this one's, doing it that way, I think worked, provided everyone else is good with it.
Usually they put on, you guys usually wanna do it about 5 o'clock. This is a good start time for you guys.
That works well for me, but I can always adjust, so.
We used to meet at 4:30.
Yeah,
You're already overpaid, so we're just gonna keep you here.
Uh,
Twice in 2 days.
The only thing. I don't know, bottom line, but I've heard grumblings about. Where this sewer department's gonna go in the future. As to. Other alternatives and other entities operating that facility. Has anybody ever discussed that in an open meeting yet? Has that ever been? Discussed as far as. Cause I know, the leachate water thing with the dump and things and, bringing that into the facility to see. They may be interested in bringing it in, I mean. We gotta be open to all things as far as bringing this forward, taking responsibility, and even if it wasn't. A town entity, isn't that a bad thing? If somebody, if they were saying, hey, we'll take it over, we'll take this, but as far as the users go, I just don't want them. The only thing that would worry me is if they looked at these books and they said. If say the dump wanted to, we'll take the leachate water, we'll figure out how to do it, all this. Where would that leave the users if they left it and said, oh, we haven't they haven't been paying enough, would it make it go up? That would be my only heartburn. If something like that took place, as if it was became a burden. Stiffer burden than this 10% increase. I would hope that would make it go down if you increased your water coming in from, if you could somehow get that leachate water into your system, wouldn't that make it?
They're trucking it to Madison.
Right, what I'm saying is if you brought that into, if they were somehow either pipe it into our system direct, so you didn't have trucks, or got it into that system, would that make it? Would that be better for users in town? And is your, as far as.
Depends on what they're paying to truck it.
Rates.
Depends on what they're paying to truck it over here. What's Madison getting up there, 5 cents or?
I think it's more than that, that was 7.5 back, I don't know. Up there.
Charging us for 4.5 cents a gallon.
Okay, well, maybe it's what Bushard's charging a gallon, but I was under the impression, I don't know what
That
they.
doesn't count trucking, that's just
Yeah.
what Madison takes.
Right.
It costs us 10 cents a gallon to get it up there, trucking and.
So what I'm saying is that, would that make the sewer district operate,
closer to being on budget.
yes, without, cause it
I
would
would
be,
say,
cause I don't know what they ship. And that all
How
is
many
weather,
trucks
that
are
all
up
is
there?
weather dependent, I guess, is how much rain they get, but. I've always wondered why we have this big facility over there, I understand why it wasn't done 30 years ago, we're not gonna get into that, from the anyways. I just don't understand why we couldn't at least. Explore that option now, cause I can't imagine why it would be. It doesn't matter whether we treat it here in Norridgewock or Madison, it's the same process is happening, and you're taking it off the road.
Yeah.
Or just, I just think that we could include that all.
we're still gonna, unless we get a press, we're still gonna have to truck the sludge up there.
Wouldn't it go, so the question there is though, couldn't we take it? With what they got going on out to the dump, couldn't they go back up there? Cause they're getting that press out there,
I haven't seen what they've done out there.
well, they're in the process of doing a press out there. Pretty much for the municipal waste, right, isn't that,
My understanding.
yes, so they're gonna take that municipal waste that they've been trucking in there. And
Dry it, press it.
yes, because the problem is it is an unstable. Mix out there, they have to try to mix it with other things so that.
Yeah.
And they're gonna press, that's what their new building out there is gonna be, is a press. So if that was the case, it could be almost a complete circle here,
Yep.
and stay right in town, wouldn't that be better for revenue? For the sewer
Possibly.
district?
Yep.
But how much,
Another option to explore.
but the only thing is that, there again, to me, we'd have to. I think we'd have to have more help, we probably have to increase the manpower to do so.
You already need to. I mean, that's the obstacle that's not reflected in his numbers, is that Tim's been a solo show for a while.
Right.
We backfilled occasionally with 20 hours a week, which is where we are right now. But for a long time, he's been just him, and then emergency backup with Oliver. Or somebody that just slides in as a
But,
favor.
so, I mean, we're gonna have those things to address as well, so I mean,
So it's a bigger picture.
I would like to see. To explore those options to get. Or with waste management on board instead of taking that stuff to Madison. If our facility would do what Madison's does. Try to work more closely as a unit there. I don't even know what they're taking over.
That leachate that they're eventually gonna produce, that shouldn't have a lot of sludge in it to begin with, out of waste management.
I'm not a scientist and I'm also not involved in their day-to-day operations.
No, I don't know,
I think we tread very lightly
yes,
and maybe gain consensus one way or another. Is this something the commission wants to explore? Because like Mike said, there's a history. Right now, we can't take that, we can't take private dumping. So that's.
I just was wondering, I
Consensus
mean,
is that that's what we
Madison-
want to explore, then staff will do that.
well, Madison. Was in a bad way when the mill shut down, because. They had this beautiful facility,
That was 90% of the,
you know for a fact, you worked there for how many, but I mean, that was their budget.
Yeah.
And now they've made it up, we got trucks hauling from Vermont. Coming to Madison. That J&M truck, there's 2 or 3 black trucks that come with
Yeah.
Vermont plates on, hauling tractor trailers. Roger, the truck that flipped over up here, we had leachate water from. A New Hampshire facility. So. It's going right past us. To another town, another sanitary district where. I see an option that if we have a big enough facility to try to. Take on more responsibility, we may have to hire more help, but it's still, in the big picture, may gain revenue. For this, and it's right there. I can't imagine why, if there was a viable way to do so, we couldn't enter into a discussion with waste management, and they may be willing to. Do that, I'm just, at least discuss it with them.
Is that the sentiment of the board?
I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, I mean, for food for thought, you don't even have to you can think about it for the next quarter's meeting, I don't.
I think it's a viable, something to look at.
I think my thought would be to, as Mike brings it up, for us to consider and rediscuss next meeting on whether that's something we want to potentially look into. To see if it might change our revenue and see how it might even things out, to just get more,
What it
I'd
would
like to
take,
look
I
more
mean,
into it.
not only, I'm not just talking about the volume and increased revenue, but I mean, we gotta look at the whole picture as to what it's gonna take. To operate the facility,
what it's
Under
gonna
those-
do to-
under those
yeah, what it's
conditions.
gonna do to the process.
yes, I mean, I don't know what, I'm still I'm a wet behind the ear rookie on that, but I mean, it would have to look at the whole ball of wax as to. Is it gonna take 2 people to do this now? 3 people to do this now? You know what I'm saying, if we would increase that volume. If it was, we need to have those numbers, and how much would that increase, as increase with the volume, so that we would. It makes no sense to do it if we don't
Make
come
money at
ahead,
it.
Yeah,
but it seems like it would be. I feel like it'd be a lot better if. The leak, we saw, that was the first accident in. Recent memory with anything carrying. Dirty water or penny sort up here the other day, but it seems like to me the. Least amount of miles you have to travel on the road, it's got to be better for the environment, and if we have a facility that's available right there to. Treat it, I mean, it's at least worth discussion,
This will appear on the next agenda.
thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
You're retiring. This is gonna have too much red tape, even, you'll be sitting in your rocking chair breeding puppies. I didn't mean it quite like that. Sorry, Jeff.
Selling pups.
Any other business anyone has?
Oh, that was a bad one, Ed. No, I'm sorry, Timmy.
All right, then I will make the motion to adjourn this meeting at 5:49.
I'll second.
This one stays here, right? Yes, that one stays